Hello, my fellow winners, and I am so glad to be back with you again this week. We are picking up where we left off last week. We started a two-part series called Doormat No More. Here's how it's done. And I stopped in the middle of the second of three sections of the podcast. So we started out by talking about assertive communication. It's a win-win. Use words that mean what you say and say what you mean. Understanding that confidence and assertiveness are two different things. Confidence is a feeling, and assertiveness is a doing. So you are doing, saying, sharing your thoughts, sharing your feelings in a direct way, and that improves your feeling of confidence. And it is a positive information loop. The more you're assertive, the more your confidence builds, and the more your confidence builds, the more you're willing to be assertive with your communication. And that means you are no longer going to behave like a doormat, like somebody who gets walked all over because they are a people pleaser or because they care too much about what other people think to keep in mind their own needs and wants. So we are working to help you be able to speak your mind, stand up for you, what you need, stand up for yourself, share what your needs are, not disregarding your friends or your fellow people, your family, your kids, whatever, but taking yourself into consideration as well as taking them into consideration. Because we don't want to be a doormat. Doormats get walked all over, and that is not going to be you as a healthy adult working toward a healthy lifestyle, a healthy weight for your body, doing the kinds of things that you love to do. So remember, Jefferson Fisher, his book is The Next Conversation, and that is where so much of the information in this episode, just like in the last one, will come from. Taking three really important topics, which is assertive communication, boundaries, and framing a conversation. Last week, we talked pretty in depth about assertive communication, which is win-win. And Jefferson Fisher pointed out that confidence is an inside thing, it's a feeling, but assertiveness is an outside thing, it's an action. Assertiveness is confidence in motion, and we behave assertively when we stand up for what we need, when we share with other people what we want. We tell people, we let them know our needs are important and so are yours. So we're not going to belabor the assertive communication, but I will ask, did you come up with a list of assertive words and phrases? He gave the examples of I need, I want, I shared, I would appreciate. Did you come up with a list? Were you able to practice those, maybe in the mirror with a friend, with your partner, and then maybe in a real life situation? If you did, I'm sure it helped to boost your confidence, the feeling of feeling good about yourself from the inside. All right, so we are going to move on and cover what we covered at the end of the last episode about boundaries. And then I ended it right before I went into a 3-step process that Jefferson Fisher uses to be able to say no, to set boundaries. All right, let me just restate the very beginning of this boundaries conversation coming from the book that Jefferson Fisher wrote called what was the name of that book? The Next Conversation. Again, it's an amazing book, and I highly recommend that you read it. And then we're going to go into this 3-part step that he has for being able to say no. And then finally, we're going to come to this amazing tool that he has that I've never really come across in the psychological literature. And it is about framing a conversation. Makes perfect sense. I think it will make the business of going about asserting yourself, asking for what you need, setting your boundaries, make it a much easier process because you're going to put a frame around one situation at a time. All right, let's back up a little bit. We'll talk about the boundary setting. And we started by saying that it's difficult for people to set boundaries, especially if the boundary is saying no to somebody, because a lot of us have had experiences in life that have taught us that saying no or setting that boundary of no has some consequences. And the examples that he gave and I shared last week were saying no to peer pressure. The consequence of saying no to your peers, especially when you were younger, made you feel left out. It can still make you feel left out, but we are working toward following through with our own values because we want to follow through with what we know we need to do to get the goal met that we want. So if we want a healthy lifestyle that includes a healthy weight for your body, we have to do certain things. And if you're having trouble doing those certain things, then we need to find out what the obstacle is and work through that obstacle. And saying no to people or setting boundaries is a huge obstacle for a lot of people. All right, so here's the deal. If you feel left out, even today as an adult, then saying no can remain very difficult. We have a huge need to fit in, to be part of a group. But that need to fit in cannot override you standing up for something that meets your values. You need to follow your values, even if your peers do leave you out. Maybe back in the day when you were a kid, if you said no to your parents or teachers, it meant you got punished or you were given some kind of discipline. And so we learned to say, I'm not going to say no. I can't. No, not doing that. Or maybe saying no to certain activities made you feel like something was wrong with you or that you wouldn't be liked. Like all the other kids are going skating. Why don't you want to go skating? Something's wrong with you. Why don't you like that? Everybody else seems to. So what we did instead of saying no is we gave in, compromised, put our own values aside, people pleased so that everybody else would be happy. You probably still do this today. And in my experience in the last 20 years, working with people who have struggled with their weight, a lot of people have become people pleasers in order to fit in order not to be made more fun of or shunned or pointed out or singled out. They go along with the crowd so that either they're not made fun of or they're not singled out in any way because that's been an unpleasant thing for them in the past. So we have to learn or relearn that it really is okay for us to get our own needs met and to consider the needs of other people in the process. So it's not a you win and I lose or I win and you lose kind of proposition, but I am not going to lose at your expense. And I'm not talking competition. I'm talking about my values, my needs. I am not going to, there are times we're going to put our needs aside for our children or our partner or things at work or the greater good. But if it's happening constantly, you're not going to reach your goals because it's a big obstacle. We have to be confident. We have to take care of ourselves because nobody else is going to as an adult. So you have to learn or relearn that it really is okay to prioritize your well-being, to say what you need, and to say it in a way that honors yourself and the world around you. So this is what Jefferson Fisher says. He says, when you do learn to prioritize your needs, to count, to matter as much as the next person, when you do that, you're going to find that it'll make you healthier. It will make you happier and it will make you more authentic. And I have always said that being healthier, following through with healthy behaviors has to have a component of feeling confident and good about yourself because people who don't feel good about themselves don't treat themselves well. So we have to learn to do this. So he gives us this 3-step process that will help you to start build your confidence through saying no. And he says, let's start with simple things, simple invitations, social offers. So let's say that you're invited to a holiday party and you know there's going to be nothing but sugar-filled foods and snacks and nothing good for you. And you know that maybe at this particular time in your journey, that is too much of a temptation. It's too much work. And so you want to say, no, I can't come. So he says, step 1, he says to start building your confidence and to say no to social offers or invitations. He says, step 1, just say no. Say no. You don't have to say, no, I'm not doing that and sound like a rude person. He says, but be direct. Remember, use those words, use those assertive phrases. I can't. I won't be able to make it. I need to say no. I need to take a pass. So you're saying no, but you're saying it in an acceptable, assertive way. I won't be able to make it. I'm not available. I need to say no this time. I need to take a pass. So you say no in whatever words work for you. So again, write out some things that sound like something you would say that are direct, assertive, and are saying no to this invitation. Secondly, he says, show gratitude. So you're saying no, but you're also showing appreciation for the ask. So you say, no, I won't be able to. Secondly, show gratitude. Thank you for inviting me. Boom. Simple. Thanks for including me. Thank you for thinking of me. Again, find a way that uses words that sound like you that are showing gratitude. That's so kind of you. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate you asking me. I'm flattered that you would invite me. I'm honored that you would invite me to speak, or whatever it is. So say no, show gratitude. Simple phrases. You don't have to say all those things I just said. Those are just examples of, you can just say, I won't be able to make it. It was so kind of you to ask. Or, I'm not going to be able to make it. It means a lot to me that I was invited. All right. Steps 1 and 2, say no, show gratitude. Step 3, show kindness, meaning, let them know that it's going to be a great thing. So you might say something like, it really sounds like it'll be a wonderful time. Or you might say, I really hope things will go great. Or you might say, I know it's going to be a great event. Or if they've invited you to attend a play or a movie or something, I've heard really good things about such and such. And if, it's just a pleasantry, I really hope you're doing well, or I'm sure you'll all have a wonderful time. So that sequence, and I'll go over it again in a minute, but here's why Jefferson Fisher says this works. He says, first, you begin with the no. It's direct, and direct is kind. Laura Preston, who is one of the, I don't know if she's a founder, but she is a huge source of content and organization and wonderfulness to the online bariatric care program, which you are invited to join for free for a month by emailing info@conniestapletonphd.com. But again, back to our sequence, steps 1, 2, and 3. He says, you begin with the no. Kindness is direct. Direct is kind. And Laura says that all the time. Second, you layer the no with gratitude. So you're saying no, you're showing gratitude. This acknowledges the value of that person's gesture and also reciprocates the thoughtfulness. So they've been thoughtful in inviting you. You are being thoughtful in sharing that you have gratitude. And then you end with a statement of kindness. He says this finishes the response on a pleasant note. And it's kind of a finality statement so that it oftentimes eliminates the person from coming back with, well, why not? Why can't you come? So again, let me restate these. And you can use these, make yourself a little cheat sheet, put it on your phone, whatever. 1, say no. I can't, won't be able to make it. I need to take a pass, etc., etc. Step 2, show gratitude. Thank you for inviting me. Oh, thanks so much for including me. I really appreciate you asking. That's so kind of you. That really means a lot. I'm flattered. Step 3, show kindness. I know it's going to be a great event. You guys are going to have a wonderful time. So it's direct, it's succinct. You've said no, you've offered your gratitude and your well wishes. And hopefully, he says a lot of times that will keep people from coming back with a why not. He says rarely that's going to draw an objection from people. And he says compare that sort of straightforward kind response that's very direct and says no to the more awkward, which he says, here's an example of awkward. Compare that reply to the more awkward, thanks for the invite, but I can't make it. I don't know what's so different about that. I think what he's saying is give the no first. I can't, thanks for the invite. I've heard good things about it. He says it's more awkward to thanks for the invite, but I really can't make it. And then they might say, but why? And then he recalls this a stern warning. If you're still asked for a justification or an explanation or a reason why you said no, don't give into it. He says you don't owe people an explanation. Reply by repeating your turn down. I'm not able to make it. He says no is the only reason you need, so you don't have to explain. So if you say, I can't, thanks for the invite, I've heard really good things, or I'm sure you'll have a good time. Well, why can't you come? I'm not available. Period. It's going to be hard to do this because we fall into, oh my God, I feel like I have to justify or explain, or that's why we need to practice. So if you've gotten an invitation, before you reply, write it out and call them on the phone and have your notes in front of you. I'm not able to make it. Now this is me, this is not coming from the book, but there's a technique called the broken record. And what you're doing is you're not going off course. You're just repeating yourself, sometimes in the same exact words, but sometimes in a little different words. So your first response might be, I can't make it. Thanks for the invite. I know you guys will have a good time. End of story. Well, why can't you come? I'm not available. Well, what are you doing? I have plans. I've got to go now. So you keep it clean, you keep it polite, you don't have to explain. Now I know, as in everything, it's easier said than done. Did the episode a few weeks ago. Practice makes progress. So work on this and see if you can whittle your responses down to the fewest number of words that are still polite. But he says you don't need to explain to people. Now, here's one of the things he says you've got to be okay with. When you start to set boundaries, you are going to feel like you're disappointing people, especially if you've been a people pleaser, especially if you care so much about what other people think about you. When you start setting these boundaries, when you say no, you're going to be like, oh my God, especially if it's somebody like mom or dad and you're learning to say no to them, or somebody that really means something to you, or it's it's something you feel like you should be there, but whatever. Embrace the feelings of disappointment, he says. Work through them. Learn to be okay with them. In other words, you say no and then you're like crumbling. You're like, oh God, I should have gone. Oh, I feel so terrible. I struggle with this at times still. But he says, don't let go of your confidence. If you made a decision not to go to something, particularly if it's so that you follow through with your own values, I want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. If I go to this thing, it's going to be too tempting. I'm not sure I'm ready to be in that environment and not just throw in the towel. I have to remain true to myself. So remain true to yourself. In the AA community, they say, to thine own self be true. It doesn't mean be a jerk to other people, but it does mean keep myself safe. If I don't want to go to an event because it's going to be all junk food or all alcohol or all debauchery, and I don't want to participate in any of those things, then I have to say no, even if the person I'm saying no to feels disappointed, even if I feel guilty, even if I feel left out, even if I have a twinge that, oh, maybe they'll never invite me again. We have to be willing to stay true to our own values, because that's what this is about. If being a people pleaser or saying yes or a doormat gets in the way of you following through with your goals to develop this healthy lifestyle, then the only way you can work on that is by learning these skills. This book and this podcast episode and the last one, along with so many of the others, give you skills for doing just that. The question is, are you willing to? Are you willing to? Because remember, we are winners, and winners work on their problems to better themselves and make a better life for themselves and the people in their lives. So you're going to feel disappointed. You're going to feel guilty. You may have disappointed your mom or your aunt or your cousin or your boyfriend or your best friend or whomever it is. You may disappoint other people, but it's part of life. And you have to remain confident and true to your own goals. He says, this is part of the process, this embracing, understanding that you're going to be disappointing other people. It's part of the process of reclaiming your needs and finding your freedom, because doormats are walked all over. They're not free. They're stuck under the feet of other people. So if you're going to reclaim this ability to state your own needs, trust me, you did it before you were 2. You stomped your feet, you had a fit, you cried when you weren't fed. So you were able to make your needs known at one time in your life. So reclaim the ability to share your needs, and you will find freedom. You will get up off that door and be that floor and be a doormat no more. All right, now this is an important point, and listen carefully because this might sting a little bit. He says, understand that when you feel like you're disappointing other people, it's typically 90%, 98% ego and 2% truth. Ouch, 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 ouch. When you think you're disappointing somebody else, it's 98% ego and 2% truth. In other words, he says, part of your feelings of disappointment is really you convincing yourself that your presence is so needed that the other person will be crushed if you say no. That you're so vital to their good time in this party, in this event, that the other person isn't emotionally resilient enough to handle it. Okay, that stings a little bit, and that may feel a little far-fetched. But the truth is, we are the main character of our own story. And so we do feel like if we hurt somebody, they're going to be crushed forever. Or part of it is our own issues. We don't like how we feel when we say no. I don't like the angst I feel because I said no. This is me saying this, and this is from other information, but it's true as well. So if I say no to you, part of it is I don't want to disappoint you, but a larger part of it is I don't want to feel how I feel. I don't like feeling guilty. I don't like feeling I let my mom down. I don't like feeling like I left my best friend down. And if I say no to this, I've let them down. And that may be true. But he says the bigger part of that, and other professionals will say the same thing, and I fully agree, that this has a lot more to do with how we feel. And it's a lot more about our own ego than it is about the other person. Yeah, mom might be ticked off, but she'll get over it. Or your friend might be ticked off and not understand, and they'll talk about you. And then next week, everything will be fine again. But understand that when you feel you're disappointing the other person, it's typically 98% ego and 2% truth. That comes from Jefferson Fisher. Ooh, ooh, ah, ah. So we are the main character of our story, but we are not the main character of everybody else's story, and they're going to be just fine whether we're at their event or not. And they're going to get over it if they're mad, unless, you've agreed to be the maid of honor at their wedding and you don't show up on the wedding day. I don't know. All right. Now he goes on. Okay. So maybe that was to a social event. Hard enough to say no, but what about the really hard conversations? What about, those questions that make you feel uncomfortable, or the comments that people make that make you feel uncomfortable, the ones you feel like you need to stand up for yourself about, but that's really, really, really difficult. Or he says, what about the difficult conversations or the questions that come from people are toxic? So maybe they say things just to be mean, or they're manipulative, or they're just unkind. Like my mother, God love her. That woman had a cruel tongue on her at times. And how do you handle those? How do you stand up for yourself with those? Or what about the requests that ask too much of you? How do you say no to them? All right, remember how when he was talking about the assertive, build a vocabulary, find some words, find some phrases, he says, do the same thing when it comes to boundaries. He says, you've probably heard of a boundary as it relates to self respect or self esteem. Absolutely. That's what we're talking about here. And that's why this can be an obstacle for people in following through with the gotta do's for healthy weight. They give in because they're not willing to be respectful enough to themselves. They want to make the other person happy. I'll respect them and make them happy, but I'm not going to respect me and stay away from this thing that I know is going to harm me. So he says, you might be familiar with this, but having the words to effectively create this boundary requires a particular skill, he says. It's more than about setting limits. Okay, so we know that a boundary is setting limits, but it's how you communicate. How do you communicate those skills assertively? Remember, we talked in that whole section about assertive communication. Now we're combining assertive communication words, vocabulary, into setting boundaries using assertive vocabulary. So this is building on itself. Now, typically, and this again comes from the book, The Next Conversation, he says you typically hear people refer to personal boundaries as drawing a line or crossing a line. He says that's half baked. It's a half baked description. He says a boundary is not a line. He says it's a perimeter. Think of a circle or a rectangle. It's completely connected, unlike a line. There's no beginning, no end. It's just a parameter. The area is fully enclosed. He says that defines a space that is unique and distinct to its owner. So it's kind of like, remember the movie Dirty Dancing? And, well, God love him, Patrick Swayze said, this is my dance space. This is your dance space. I'm not going to cross into yours. You're not going to cross into mine. So that space is mine. It's mine. And I draw a line or a circle or a rectangle. There's a boundary. He says your actions and choices define the boundary around the things you value. So if you value your health, if you value maintaining your longevity, if you value continuing to be able to do the things you're able to do because you've lost weight, if you value improving your health or preventing health complications, if you value time spent doing things you love with the people you love, then you will define a circle or a space or that is yours that you're not going to let anybody take from you. Because if they interfere on your space, if they cross over that line and come into your space, you are at danger for not following through with your values. So you have to figure out what you value. That's why I said define your meaningful matters. Do you know what you really want? Yeah, it's that health, it's that longevity, it's doing the things, and I got to do these certain things. Your actions inform other people about your values. The words you use, the choices you make, let people know this is a value to me. So I have some behaviors that are absolutely not to be messed with. And exercise for me is one of them. And eating a bunch of crap is another one of them. And so when I say no, I've shared with you that when I worked in this office, and believe it or not, it was a surgical weight loss bariatric office. And the people that worked out there would order crap food for lunch every day. And they would ask me, would you like to order? No, I don't eat out during the week. That's my boundary. That's my space. I don't cross that. I don't eat out during the week. Now, it's not rigid, maybe if it's a special occasion, but most of the time, this is my boundary. I value my health, which means I don't eat a lot of crap food. That means I don't order out for lunch during the week. Meaning, yeah, if it's the weekend and I got something going on, maybe I'll eat out. But I'm not ordering out for lunch. That is not in line with my values of health. So when I inform other people of that and I say, no, I'm not ordering out, they learn that that's a value to me. And guess what? They quit asking. Or the kid in high school who says, I don't drink. Pretty soon, If everybody knows it, they quit asking him. It doesn't mean they leave him out, but you respect you and they respect you. Absolutely how it works. So, part of building your confidence, back to Jefferson Fisher, is being the bouncer to your own self esteem. I love this. It's like, don't mess with my self esteem or I'm going to bounce you out of here. I'm going to push you away. I'm going to pull out my big gun muscles and I'm going to bounce you out of here because you're not messing with my self esteem. You've got to let other people know what's allowed and what isn't. So, he outlines, delineates, enumerates some of the benefits of boundaries. And he says, you set the boundaries because these boundaries are the cornerstone for healthy relationships. Hello. If you're a doormat, it's not a healthy relationship because one person's walking all over the other. So a boundary that says, you're not treating me that way, is a cornerstone for a healthy relationship. And the more you stick to your boundaries, the more people will respect you and the more you will respect yourself. Boundaries are the cornerstone of honest communication because I'm being genuine. No, I'm not ordering out for lunch. No, I'm not going to the ice cream store. No, I'm not bringing crap food into my house. No, I'm not going to eat the way you do. You do you, boo. But this is what I choose for me because my health is a prime value to me. And boundaries are a cornerstone for healthy self-respect. If I give in, if I waver, if I let you convince me to go against my own values, if I allow you to walk all over me, I don't have respect for myself, and you're going to lose respect for me as well. Also, boundaries help you prevent burnout and resentment because we talked about that. People who always give in develop resentment and they get burned out. They're giving so much of themselves that they have no more to give. And then they start being ticked off at all the people who are taking from them and they become a victim. And not a good thing. All right. So boundaries keep you from being a victim. Boundaries allow you to make choices that go with your values. That's what this is all about. If you don't have your boundaries, you're not going to follow through with the gotta do's. Then you're not going to meet your goals in the long run. So, not having boundaries is one of those obstacles that we need to remove to help you maintain your goals of a healthy lifestyle. Boundaries are self-care. Boundaries are a form of self-love. You show up for yourself. You show up for everybody else. Show up for your own self. That's what having boundaries is. That's what having self-respect is. That's what having confidence is. And you use, because remember, assertive is an action. You use assertive language. So I love this. Now, here's something that I had never thought of, never read in any of the psychological literature about boundaries. Jefferson Fisher says, get yourself a manual, how it's done. So a manual lays it out. Here's our manual for putting together this piece of furniture from IKEA. Doesn't usually work with IKEA, but maybe if you follow directions better than I do. But he says, get into the mindset of giving out manuals. So what's in your manuals? A list of automatic no's. What? Yes. And a list of automatic no's. No, I don't eat out during the week. No, don't order for me. No, I still don't want to eat out. It's Wednesday. No, please don't ask me about ordering out. It's an automatic list of automatic no's. So these manuals, your list of automatic no's, give voice to your boundaries. They tell people in detail about how you operate. Oh, don't ask Connie, she's not going to eat out. It didn't hurt my feelings. It was a relief. I didn't have to keep saying, I don't eat out during the week. They knew. Whether they thought it was a great thing or a bad thing, I didn't care because I don't care what people think about me taking good care of my health. Like it, don't like it, respect it, don't respect it. I respect it because it's getting me to where I want to be. Now, Jefferson Fisher says about your manual, do you know what your manual says? If you don't, how will anyone else? So he encourages people to make a numbered list. For real, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, a set of instructions of how In your very next conversation, this is coming right from the book, you will engage in communication. He says, write them down in full sentences. Remember when you went to school back in the day and there were no computers and you had a pen and a notebook and we took notes when the teacher talked? Some of you are too young. You don't know this kind of school, but we used to take notes. We would write down full sentences and that's how we would learn. And then we would practice these things out loud. If you're in a play or if you're in a whatever, you practice your lines. That's what we're doing here. Write down your lines and then practice them. Just like we talked about looking in the mirror and being assertive, using good eye contact, using that assertive vocabulary. It says you need to know for yourself what you're going to say no to and what you will not allow past your boundary. Now he gives us some examples. So here's a thing that couples do a lot. What you're feeling is guilt. You just feel guilty. Here's a response to that. That's assertive and a boundary. I don't allow others to tell me or decide how I feel. Boom. Now, that is so positive in so many ways, and we'll get into more nuance of this later, but notice it doesn't say, you don't get to tell me how I feel, because we don't want to start sentences or with you. We say, I will not allow, boundary, boundary, boundary. No, 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 no. I will not allow others to tell me how I feel. Boom. Don't need to say anymore. I won't allow you to tell me how I feel. All right, here's another example. If your kid's talking to you very, very disrespectfully, or your spouse, or your supervisor, or anybody, I don't respond to disrespect. This is so great in homes because for some sad reason, we tend to treat the people in our homes worse than we treat a lot of strangers. So we might be kind and polite out in public, and then we get home and we treat people like crap. Not a good thing. So I don't respond to disrespect. This is a great thing to do with teenagers or children of all ages, to teach them and to teach. Remember Dr. Phil? You teach people how to treat you. So if somebody's yelling at you and screaming at you and you respond back, you're giving them permission, in a sense, to go ahead and treat you that way. But if you say, I don't respond to disrespect, and then maybe the kids will try it a different way. All right, I don't respond to disrespect. I don't engage in conversation when I'm not ready. So if somebody says, you know what, we need to talk about such and such. Well, maybe you need some time to prepare. Maybe you need some time to think about it and you can't even remember in the moment. I'm not going to engage in this conversation because I'm not ready. Boom. Not going to. It isn't happening. I don't dismiss my intuition as irrelevant. So you're like, I just have this really gut feeling. Oh, a gut feeling. Come on. Do you believe in that superstition? All right. So you've just been dissed. You've been disregarded. You've been disrespected. So you say, I don't dismiss my intuition as irrelevant. So you're standing up for yourself, saying, you might think my intuition means nothing, but I respect my intuition. I don't dismiss my intuition as irrelevant. So I'm putting a boundary about this. My value is I trust my intuition. And if you're telling me it's irrelevant, whatever you think, but I will not dismiss my intuition as irrelevant. All right, here's another example. I won't compromise my peace for the sake of appeasement. In other words, I'm not going to please everybody else here and then be really anxious myself. Another example, I don't participate in gossip. Boom. You know, people gather around the water cooler or at the office and all the friends are talking about somebody, and I don't participate in gossip. End of story. Then they're not going to try you on that if you stay consistent. So let's put it in the terms of some weight stuff. You really need to come to the family reunion. You really need to come. You know, everybody's going to be there and they're going to be upset if you don't come. You know, I don't respond to this pressure. Boom. You know what? You can pressure me all you want, but I'm not going to respond. I'm not giving in to the pressure. I am not comfortable at an event where there is so much unhealthy food. I need more time to become comfortable, whatever it is, but you're setting your boundary. And the boundary is, no, I'm not coming. It's not happening. Or you can say, I'm not coming until all the food has been put away. And then I'll be so happy to see everybody. All right, so you set the boundary. And this is where he says, write down your sentences. So if you have a boundary to set with somebody, whether it's about them bringing unhealthy, tempting food into your house, or not being able to go to the grocery store, or not cooking foods for the family that are too much for you, like fried foods or whatever you are uncomfortable doing, whatever your value is to stay true to your healthy journey, you have to figure what that is. And you got to come up with some words like, I don't respond. I will not allow. I do not engage. I will not dismiss. I will not compromise. I will not participate. So write those down and use those, and then write out full sentences for whatever your circumstances may be. Because until you get really, really good at this, you're not going to be able to think of your assertive communication, your boundary words, your skill set. You've got to learn them and practice them. Assertiveness is practice, it's doing. So you've got to have your manual, you've got to have your cheat sheet, and then practice, 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 practice. But those are some great automatic no's. I don't respond. I don't engage. I don't dismiss. I won't compromise. And make your list. Then he says, you have to enforce the boundary, and here's how you enforce a boundary. Now remember, in that last little section there, when the person said, I will not allow others to tell me how I feel, our typical response is, you can't tell me how to feel. You don't get to decide. You don't blah, 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 blah. All right. He says, begin the boundary by using an I statement. This is just good, assertive, healthy communication. I statements as opposed to you. There's a whole thing. If you say you, the person's going to be defensive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we begin with I. I don't accept how you're treating me. I don't appreciate these foods in the house. I don't put myself in compromising situations like the bakery. I will not accept responsibility for something I didn't do. So I will not be attending the food fest. I will not be going to the buffet. I will not be ordering out. I will not be having the birthday cake. I will not, I cannot, I choose not to, I don't. Work examples, I don't work on weekends. If you don't drink alcohol, you don't have to say, oh, I'm trying to cut back. All those excessive words we talked about in the last episode, I don't drink. Boom, end of story. Oh, come on, just one. Just have one. One cookie, one brownie, one beer. I don't drink. I won't give in to peer pressure. I don't appreciate you pushing me on this. I will not stay and listen to this. Remember I told you that conversation about the woman chewing my ass for 40 minutes when I was a new employee? If I had known these skills or had this language, I could have said, I am not willing to sit and have you lecture me. I will not stay any longer if you continue in that tone of voice. You're saying what you will and will not put up with, and you're saying it with I statements. I don't work on weekends. I don't eat sugary things. I don't eat donuts. I don't eat Italian food. I don't, whatever it is you do or don't do. So remember, boundaries don't always have to be an I don't, and this is out of the book. They can also redirect a conversation, reset a focus, or clarify your interest. So here's a good rule of thumb. He says, If you go to see somebody, if you want to have a conversation with them, tell them why you're there. He calls this a boundary of presence. This is why I came into your office, or this is why I wanted to meet with you, or this is why I stopped by your house. He says, I'm here. So somebody asks you to talk, and then they start in with, chewing you out or accusing you of something. Listen, I'm here because you matter to me. I won't stay if you yell at me. So what you're doing is you're telling them, I'm here, you're important to me. This is why I'm here. I'm here to discuss the issue of going to the grocery store. I'm here to discuss the matter, Mom, of you bringing unhealthy foods to my house. I'm here, friend, to talk about the way you spoke to me in front of our group of friends. I felt embarrassed. I won't participate in that, whatever it happens to be. All right. So, a boundary of presence. I'm here because this issue is important to us. I'm here because you're important to me. So, it's reassuring. And then if they bring up something that's unrelated, or if they try to go down and try, yeah, but you blah, 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 blah. Listen, I'm here because this is important to both of us. So you bring it back to, this is the boundary. This is the reason I'm here. A boundary of purpose is, tell them what you're there to talk about. Now, let's say you're having a conversation with your partner about, they didn't do the laundry and they said they were going to, and whatever it happens to be. And then they start in with, well, you always tell me you're going to change the oil and you never take the car in. Okay, now we're going down a rabbit hole and getting off the track. In this conversation, I'd like to discuss the laundry. The car is relevant to another, or the oil is a legitimate issue. We can discuss that another time. So you're validating them. You're not saying, I don't do that. Now we're off and we lose the whole point. You bring it back. I'm here to talk about the laundry. We can discuss the oil at a different time. I'd like to discuss with you, grown teenage child who lives in my house or young adult who lives in my house. I'd like to discuss your continuing to bring boxes of bakery items and setting them on the counter. Oh, Mom, come on, just lighten up. Listen, I've asked you before. I'm telling you, this is important to me. We're talking about the bakery items. So you bring it back, you use your boundaries. I don't appreciate. I will not tolerate. This is unacceptable to me in my home. All right. Now, remember we talked about the green light, yellow light, red light boundaries from the other book that will be in the show notes, because I still can't remember the name of it. But he says, and that's that author, but the example of that would be, the first thing is state your boundaries. That is the green light. I don't want bakery items left on the cabinet, period. Boom. I won't sit here and let you talk to me that way. Boom. All right. Then you add a consequence. So if they start going down a rabbit hole, or if they continue to talk to you disrespectfully, if you continue to talk to me in that tone of voice, I'm going to leave you at a consequence. This is the yellow light boundary. Or if you continue to bring the bakery items in the house, then I'm going to move them. If you continue to da 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 da. So the first is conditional. There's the consequence. If you continue to do that, the second is an action step. If you continue to bring the bakery items in the house, I am going to take them out to your car. I am going to put them in your room. If you continue to talk to me in that tone of voice, I am going to leave for 20 minutes and we can try it again later. If you continue to pressure me about going to the family reunion, I am going to hang up the phone. We can discuss something else later. So the first is, if you continue this, if this behavior continues, this is what I am going to do. This creates confidence. This says, I'm supporting and enforcing what is important to me. I'm telling you, this is important. It's my value. And if you continue to cross over my boundary, I'm going to take action. So some examples, he says, I don't accept you talking to me this way. Like I'm not putting up with it. If you continue to talk to me this way, I'm going to end the conversation. And I think I shared with you that I did this with my kids when they were in high school. My daughter called, she's yelling at me for something. I'm like, listen, if you're going to talk to me like this, then I'm going to hang up. She continues, I'm going to hang up now. We can talk about this later if you can talk to me respectfully. As a parent, here's another good one. If you can't talk to me respectfully, then you will not be allowed to talk to your friends who you want to talk to. It's a natural and logical consequence, but it's also a boundary setting tool. If your boss says, I need you to come in and work on the weekends, I don't work on weekends. If you continue to schedule me on the weekends, I'm going to find a place that supports my commitment to family. Ooh, boom. I don't drink alcohol. If you continue to pressure me about it, I'm going to leave. I don't cook fried foods in this house. If you continue to pressure me about it, I'm going to cook for myself only. You can fend for yourself. Boom. I don't go to events where they don't serve anything but sugary desserts. I'm happy to meet you later. You have to follow through. If you continue to talk to me, I'm going to hang up the phone and we can talk again later. We can try again later. You've got to follow through. It's just like being a parent with little kids. If you say something, you've got to follow through because consistency is crucial. And if you don't follow through, you lose their respect and you lose the respect of yourself. Ouch! So don't do this. Don't do this if you're not ready to be serious about it. Practice, 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 practice. Practice these conversations with your friends. Practice them in not real life situations. Find the situations that are difficult to you in your journey of health. Find your words, find your phrases, find your assertive words, find your boundary phrases, and then practice, 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 practice. And then when a situation is coming up, write it out in full and practice it. All right. Now, Jefferson Fisher in his book says how setting boundaries changes your relationship. All right. A lot of times people are going to not like it. It disrupts the apple cart. And they're going to be like, I don't understand this. I don't understand why you can't just go to Thanksgiving and have a normal meal. I don't understand why you can't just go to the grocery store and just not put unhealthy foods in your cart. I don't understand. Well, I don't need to make this make sense to you. Boom. Healthy boundary. I don't need you to understand this. I hope you will respect it. That is one of the best phrases I have ever learned. I don't need you to understand this. I hope you will respect it. I'm not going to the grocery store. It's not a safe place for me at this time in my health journey. Well, I just don't understand. Why can't I don't need you to understand this. I hope you will respect it. You don't have to say anything more than that. Don't get caught up in the argument. Don't get caught up in defensiveness because people aren't going to understand. You're changing your ways of behaving. You're not acting like a doormat anymore. You're standing up to them. You're looking at them. You're speaking with confidence. You're saying specific words. I will not. It's uncomfortable for everybody at first, but it's okay. People need to be given time to understand, not understand. They need to have time to realize that you mean what you're saying, that you're not going to give in, that you're not going to cave, that you're not going to people please, that you mean what you say. Boy, I tell you what, it builds respect. I shared that with you in 2 episodes again when I was talking about my relationship with my husband and how I did not respect him because he didn't stand up for himself ever. And as he learned to stand up for himself, even though it took me off guard for a while, I really was like, that is great. Good for you. And I respected him more and he respected himself more. And the same is true for all of us when we stand up for ourselves. All right, because relationships are going to feel tested and they're recalibrating during this change period when you're becoming a healthier version of yourself. I talked to a young woman today, just 30 years old, and she had been she referred to herself as a people pleaser. She didn't listen to the podcast. She knew nothing about this, which was funny because I said my last week's episode in my podcast was about people pleasing. But she had been working with a therapist who was teaching her these exact skills. And she said the relationship was changing and she felt so much better about herself and in turn was much better able to follow through with her healthy behaviors. It's true. It's true. Now, what you have to understand, and people sometimes go overboard with this, is they use boundaries to bully people. I said it's going to be this way and it's going to be that way. It's not how it works. All right, let's get to this really great part about framing a conversation. If you frame a conversation at the beginning of it, it makes things very clear to you and very clear to somebody else. It's almost like you know what you're going to talk about and you put it in a frame. So imagine a picture frame and you put in there the topic of conversation. I am no longer cooking fried foods in our home. All right, that's the conversation. You are framing the conversation. That is what the conversation is going to be about. So we're not going to go outside of that frame. We're not going to detour. We're not going to detour. We're not going to allow other things inside of this frame. It's a boundary, and I'm going to stick to my boundaries. So, Jefferson Fisher says, set the frame from the very start of the conversation and follow these steps. Here are some examples. So, you want to set a direction. You begin by telling the person exactly what you want to talk about. And you want to use your assertive words. You want to say, I'd like to talk to you about about cooking fried foods in the home. All right, boom. This is what the conversation is. I'm telling you that this is the topic. It's in this frame. I want to talk to you about my no longer cooking fried foods. You're not telling them they can't cook fried foods. You're telling them I'm not cooking fried foods. So I'd like to talk to you about my no longer cooking fried foods. And all right. So, other examples. I want to talk to you about what you said to me when we got home after your mother's birthday party last night. Set it in the frame. This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, or maybe it was, I want to talk to you about the comment you made about me in front of your mother. Okay, we'll go with that because maybe they said something that you felt embarrassed about or disrespected by or whatever. So I want to talk to you about what you said about me in front of your mother. Or if you're at work, I'd like to talk to you about a salary increase. That's what I'm talking about. So you're framing exactly what this one conversation is going to be about. And that is going to help you in relationships because when we get in arguments with our people, we tend to go off on, well, you did this and last time you did that and you're always doing this too. And then we lose it. We lose the frame of what we wanted to discuss. All right. So the next thing is tell the other person how you want the conversation to end. This doesn't mean we have to do this my way, but what you're doing is you're saying, I'm setting the direction. I want to finish this, end up in a positive way. So I want to talk to you about my no longer cooking fried foods And by the end of it, I want you to decide what your choices are going to be. Right? So I'm not telling you have to do it my way. I'm telling you what I'm going to do or not going to do. And then I want you to make up your own mind about it. Or I'm going to talk to you about what you said about me in front of your mother. And I want us to end the conversation with a better understanding about where each of us is coming from. So it's setting a positive hope for the outcome of this conversation. I'm framing what I want to talk about, and I want to let you know I'd like this to end up as a win-win. Other examples, he says, I want to be heard without you feeling you need to fix it. Classic male-female thing, right? A lot of us women have learned to say to our partners, if they're male or female, however it works in your relationship, I'd like to share how I think, and I don't need you to fix it, right? I want to talk about what happened at work today, and I'd like you not to fix it for me. So you're framing it and you're setting the expectation. I love that. And then he says, thirdly, get their commitment. Does that sound fair to you? Could we agree to that? Does that sound doable? So you're saying, I want to talk about my no longer cooking fried foods in this house. By the end of this conversation, I want you to decide what you would like to do about that. Does that sound reasonable to you? Boom, 1, 2, 3. So we're framing this conversation. Now, what that does is it lets people know what the topic is. It also lets them know there is an end to this and how you would like it to end, which is a positive. I want it to end with a win-win. So now we have a scope. The frame also invite somebody to listen more because they know you're not attacking them. You're talking about you. You're talking about what you would like, and you have already made it clear that you would like this to end well, and you've asked for their consent. Does that work for you? How does this sound to you? Does this sound reasonable? So they're going to be much more likely to listen because they're not like, oh God, am I being called to the principal's office? Oh my God, when are you going to, lay it down and, throw me under the bus here? When's it coming? So by framing it, how you want it to end and getting their consent, it strengthens this connection rather than threatens the connection between the people in the conversation. And he also says one frame, one issue. So I'm going to talk about the cooking of the fried foods, or I'm going to talk about you not doing the laundry you said you would do. I'm not bringing the oil filter change into this conversation. If you want to talk about that, that's fine. We'll do it in another time, another place. So we're framing this so we don't get lost. We're framing this so we're both in a place of, I know it's win-win, and if the conversation gets back, or if they kind of go off track, or if you say something you shouldn't have, correct it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I raised my voice. I shouldn't have done that. I'd like to bring it back to the laundry. So give feedback along the way. That was really helpful. I appreciated. That's not what you agreed to. We said we would talk about the laundry in this conversation. So if they go, oh, yeah, well, 3 weeks ago, you said you were going to do the laundry and you didn't do the laundry. You're right. And I take responsibility for that. I'd like to talk about this week's laundry, right? So you're not getting into the he said, she said that, because people get defensive very, very quickly. And there are some ways to prevent that defensiveness, which we can talk about another day when we talk about communications. But I really wanted to talk about using assertive language. I need, I want, I would appreciate, setting boundaries. I will not. I refuse to. This is not something that goes along with my goals. I will not allow you to. I will not sit for. So assertive communication, boundaries. I don't go out. I don't steer away from what's important and valuable to me. And then framing the conversation. I'd like to talk about my no longer doing the grocery shopping. Or I want to talk about my using Instacart to order the groceries because maybe it's just so hard for you to go there. I'd like to talk about asking your help in this matter. Mom, I want to let you know I'd like to talk. No, Mom, I want to talk about your bringing unhealthy food to my house. I will no longer allow it in my home. Framing the conversation, setting your boundaries, following up. Mom, if you continue to bring this to my home, I will put it back in your car. Mom, if you continue to bring this to my house, I will ask you not to come to my house. Whatever it is, assertive, using boundaries, Mom, I'm calling you so that we can discuss the issue of you bringing food to my house, framing the conversation. I'd like at the end of this conversation for us to have a better understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. Does that sound workable to you? Now, people aren't always going to cooperate, and it's not always going to go just like you hope. That's when you use the broken record and you come back to the point you're trying to make, the boundary you're trying to set, the framing of the communication. We can talk about that another time, Mom. Right now, I would like to talk about you're bringing unhealthy foods to my house. So if they deter, if they get defensive, if they go off track, if they go offline, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. These skills, using assertive communication, improves your confidence. Having confidence improves your willingness to be assertive. Setting boundaries makes it clear for everybody what your values are. Following through with your boundaries makes it absolutely clear they will respect you more. You will have more respect for yourself. You will be more willing to set further boundaries. Follow through is key. Frame the conversation one topic at a time so you don't get lost in a conversation or an argument that goes nowhere. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful skills. Great examples throughout this book and throughout these 2 podcast episodes. So I'm going to ask you to make sure that you write down, if you haven't done it already, write down your assertive words. I need, I want, I would appreciate your help. And I want you to write down your list of boundary words. I will not accept, I will not permit. What were some of those other ones that they used that were really good? I don't respond to. I won't compromise my values. I'm not going to dismiss how I feel. I won't allow you to tell me how I feel. I. Always I, not you. Another podcast episode, which I've done before. So go back and listen to the ones on communication. All right, enforce your boundaries and set a framework. So write down your assertive words, write down your boundary vocabulary and the consequences if people don't go along, and then write down one topic, one frame, one topic, one frame, and keep coming back to that. This is how you no longer behave as a doormat and you learn to stand up for yourself. But you got to know what those values are. What are your meaningful matters in relation to your health journey? Stand up for yourself in regard to those. Have your words, practice your words, work with a therapist, work with a coach. We're talking about your health, my friends. That makes it your responsibility this day and every single day of your life. I hope you're getting a lot of great information from the Weight Loss Winformation Podcast. Would appreciate your comments and any topics that you would like to hear me talk about. Also, we are getting ready to do a whole series on GLP-1s. So we will be hearing from people who have had surgery and are using GLP-1s, people who have not had surgery and are using GLP-1s, people who have used them and are no longer using them. We'll hear from dietitians, a surgeon, bariatricians. So we're going to get a lot of good information about the reality of GLP-1s. So stay tuned for those episodes. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for spending your time with me. Be sure to let other people know about this amazing podcast. Bye-bye.